The Grand Hall of Valaris Prime sparkled with 1,000 lights. Ships from across the galaxy had docked at the massive space station, bringing rulers and princes from every corner of known space. The Grand Concordance happened only once every 10 years, and this year everyone had come to see one thing. They wanted to know if Queen Darym would finally choose a husband. Jiho wiped the grease from his hands and sighed. He was 3 levels below the Grand Hall, fixing a broken coolant pipe that nobody else wanted to touch. The pipe was old, made by humans back when Earth first joined the galactic community. Most alien mechanics did not understand human engineering. They thought it was too simple, too primitive. But Jiho knew better. Human machines were built to last, built to be fixed with basic tools and common sense. He twisted the wrench one more time and heard the satisfying click of the pipe locking into place. Cool air rushed through the vent above his head. Another job done. Another small payment added to his account. Maybe in 5 more years he could pay off his family's debts and go home to Earth. Far above him, Queen Darym stood before the assembled rulers of the galaxy. She was magnificent. Her scales shifted from deep red to brilliant gold as she moved, catching the light like liquid metal. Her wings, folded against her back, could span the width of a small ship. She wore a crown of black crystal that seemed to absorb light, rather than reflect it. She was also completely uninterested in every suitor presented to her. "Your Majesty," said the ambassador from the Kelvin systems, bowing low, "may I present Prince Hyun of the Northern Reaches. He commands 40 war fleets and has never lost a battle." Prince Hyun stepped forward. He was tall and covered in blue-green armor that grew from his own body. His species was known for their strength and honor. He knelt before Darym with perfect form. Darym looked at him for exactly 3 seconds. "No," she said simply. A murmur ran through the crowd. Prince Hyun's face darkened with embarrassment, but he stood and walked away without protest. It was not the first time Darym had rejected a suitor, and everyone knew it would not be the last. The next suitor came forward. Then another. Then another. Darym rejected them all with the same cold efficiency. Too ambitious. Too boring. Too young, too old. Not intelligent enough. Too focused on war. Too focused on peace. Her chief advisor, an elderly Varathian named Rayon, leaned close to her ear. "Your Majesty, you must choose someone. The Empire needs alliances. Without a political marriage, we stand alone." "Then we stand alone," Darym replied, her voice low enough that only Rayon could hear. "I will not bind myself to someone I do not trust." "Not again." Rayon said nothing more. Everyone in the Varathian court knew the story. 50 years ago, Darym had trusted someone. A prince from a neighboring system who spoke beautiful words and made grand promises. She had agreed to marry him, had opened her heart for the first time in her long life. He had tried to kill her on their wedding night. The assassin's blade had pierced her chest, destroying her original heart. She survived only because human doctors happened to be on the station, and they had experimental technology. They built her a new heart, part organic and part machine, powered by a fusion core that would last for centuries. The heart saved her life, but it changed her. She became colder, more distant. She rejected every suitor after that, and her empire slowly became isolated from the rest of the galaxy. The presentation of suitors continued for another hour. Darym rejected them all. Finally, the ceremony ended, and she stood to give her closing speech. She opened her mouth to speak, then everything went wrong. The pain hit her like a bolt of lightning. Her chest seized, and her scales flickered from gold to red to black in rapid succession. She tried to take a breath, but her lungs would not fill. The room spun around her. She heard screaming, felt hands catching her as she fell, saw Rayon's terrified face above her, shouting orders she could not understand. The world went dark. When the emergency alert sounded through the station, Jiho was already heading back to his quarters. He stopped in the middle of the corridor as the message played on every screen. Medical emergency in the Grand Hall. All available doctors and technicians report immediately. This is not a drill, Jiho hesitated. He was not a doctor. He was just a mechanic. But the message said technicians too, and medical emergencies usually meant broken equipment. He changed direction and ran toward the hall. By the time he arrived, the room was chaos. Alien doctors surrounded someone on the floor, their instruments beeping and flashing. Guards pushed the crowd back, trying to maintain order. Jiho slipped through the confusion, moving toward the medical team. Then he saw who lay on the floor. Queen Daram. Her scales had turned completely black and her breathing was shallow and rapid. A holographic display floated above her chest, showing a complex mechanical device inside her body. The biomechanical heart is failing, one doctor said, his voice tight with stress. We cannot stabilize it. Use the Kelvin resonator, another suggested, already tried. It made the fluctuations worse. What about direct neural bypass? Too dangerous. The device is connected to her entire nervous system. One wrong move could kill her. Jiho pushed forward until he could see the holographic display clearly. His breath caught in his throat. He knew that design. He had seen it in his grandfather's old workshop back on Earth. The curved power core, the neural interface connections, even the specific pattern of the energy flow. That is human engineering, he said aloud. Every head turned toward him. A guard grabbed his arm. Who are you? How did you get in here? I am a mechanic, level 7 maintenance, and I know who built that heart. The lead doctor, a tall being with 6 arms and crystalline skin, looked at him with something between hope and desperation. Can you fix it? Jiho looked at the display again. The power core was cracking, sending unstable energy through the entire device. In another day, maybe 2, it would fail completely. But the design was solid, based on principles his grandfather had taught him. Human machines were meant to be repaired, not replaced. Maybe, Jiho said carefully, but I need to examine it properly. And I need access to the Queen. The doctors looked at each other. The guard still held Jiho's arm, uncertain whether to remove him or let him stay. Then Raon appeared, his old face creased with worry. Let him try, Raon said. We have exhausted every other option. What do we have to lose? The guard released Jiho. The doctor stepped back, making room. Jiho moved closer to the unconscious Queen, his heart pounding. He had fixed thousands of machines in his life, but never one that was keeping someone alive. Never one inside the body of a queen. He looked down at Dareem's face. Even unconscious, even with her scales turned black from pain, she was beautiful. But more than that, she looked tired, ancient, like someone who had been carrying too much weight for too long. Don't worry, Jiho whispered, knowing she could not hear him. I'll figure this out. We humans are good at fixing broken things. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. They moved Queen Daram to her private ship. The Flame of Ancients was the largest vessel docked at Valaris Prime, a massive warship that served as both palace and fortress. Jiho followed the medical team through corridors that seemed carved from volcanic rock, past guards who watched him with suspicious eyes. The medical chamber was larger than Jiho's entire apartment back on Earth. Daram lay on a platform in the center, surrounded by machines that hummed and beeped. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing her vital signs. All of them were getting worse. You have 48 hours, Raon told Jiho. His voice was cold, but his eyes showed fear. After that, the Queen will die. And if she dies because you failed, you will wish you had died with her. Jiho swallowed hard and nodded. I understand. The Varathian guards positioned themselves around the room. They would watch his every move. One wrong action and they would kill him. Jiho tried not to think about that. He pulled up a chair next to the diagnostic console and began studying the data. The heart was more complex than anything he had ever seen. It was part machine, part living tissue, and the two were woven together so completely that removing one would destroy the other. The power core sat at the center, a small fusion reactor that generated energy for both the mechanical and organic components. But the core was cracking, leaking radiation into the surrounding tissue. Jiho worked through the night. He traced every connection, mapped every energy pathway, analyzed every fluctuation in the system. His eyes burned with exhaustion, and his back ached from sitting in one position too long, but he kept working. At dawn on the second day, Dareem woke up. Her eyes opened suddenly, glowing with a fierce golden light. She turned her head and saw Jiho sitting beside her, surrounded by holographic screens and diagnostic tools. His hands were deep in a projection of her chest cavity, manipulating virtual components. What? She said, her voice rough and dangerous. Are you doing? Jiho jumped, nearly falling off his chair. Several guards rushed forward, weapons ready. He held up his hands quickly. Your Majesty, I am trying to save your life. By touching my heart? Dareem tried to sit up, but pain shot through her chest and she fell back with a gasp. Get away from me. I did not give you permission. With respect, Your Majesty. Jiho said, surprised by his own boldness. You will be dead in about 36 hours if I stop now. Every species on this station has tried to fix your heart with their advanced technology, and they made it worse. Sometimes the old ways work best. Darim stared at him. Her scales flickered between black and red, a sign of anger and pain mixed together. You are human. Yes, humans are primitive. Your technology is centuries behind the rest of the galaxy. Maybe, Jiho agreed, but a human built your heart. My grandfather, actually. Or someone who learned from him. I recognize his design style. And if human technology is so primitive, why are you using it to stay alive? For a long moment, no one breathed. The guards looked ready to drag Jiho away. Rayon looked horrified that a common mechanic had spoken to the Queen so directly. Then Darim laughed. It was a short, bitter sound, but it was laughter. You have courage, she said. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Very well, human. Continue your work. But know this. If I die because of your failure, my guards have orders to throw you into the nearest star. Understood, Your Majesty. Darim closed her eyes again, but Jiho noticed she did not go back to sleep. She watched him through barely opened eyelids as he returned to his work. Over the next day, they began to talk. At first, Darim asked questions about the repairs. Jiho explained what he was doing, using simple words that she could understand. He showed her how the power core was fracturing, how the energy flow was disrupted, how the organic tissue was trying to compensate but failing. Then the conversation shifted. Jiho told her about Earth, about his family's small farm in a place called Jeju. He described the ocean, which Darim had never seen. He talked about rain, something that did not exist on the desert planets of her empire. We have storms on Korathvel, Darim said, but they are made of fire and ash, not water. I have never seen a firestorm, Jiho admitted. Be grateful. They can burn the flesh from your bones in seconds. As he worked, Jiho discovered something troubling. The heart was not just mechanical. It was connected to Darim's nervous system in ways that went beyond simple control. It responded to her emotions, adjusting its power output based on what she felt. Your Majesty, he said carefully, I need to ask you something personal. Darim's eyes opened fully. Ask, do you get angry often? She frowned. What does that have to do with anything? Your heart is connected to your emotions. When you feel strong emotions, especially anger or fear, the power core surges. It was designed for a human's emotional range, not a Varathian's. Your people feel things more intensely than we do. Every time you get very angry or very afraid, you are damaging your own heart. Darim was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I have been angry for 50 years, I know. Rayon told me what happened, about the assassination attempt. Did he tell you that I loved him? The one who tried to kill me? Jiho stopped working and looked at her directly. No, he did not mention that. I did. I was young, only 297 years old. I thought love was real. That trust was possible. I was wrong. Darim's scales darkened. He wanted my throne, nothing more. And when I would not give it to him willingly, he decided to take it by force. Not everyone is like that, Jiho said quietly. How would you know? You are what, 25 years old? 28. And you are right, I do not have much experience with love. But I know machines. And I know that if you keep running a machine too hard, with too much anger and too much fear, it will eventually break. That is what is happening to you, Your Majesty. Your heart cannot handle the weight of everything you are carrying. Darim looked away. Then I will get a new heart. There is no new heart. This design is unique. My grandfather's generation is gone. The knowledge of how to build this went with them. If this one fails, you die. Then I die. You don't mean that. How do you know what I mean? Darim's voice rose, and immediately the monitors began beeping faster. Her heart was surging with emotion. Jiho pointed at the displays. Because your heart is telling me, look, right now you are feeling afraid. Not angry, afraid. You are scared of dying and you are scared of living, and that fear is killing you faster than any assassin ever could. The room fell silent except for the beeping of machines. Darim stared at the displays, watching the evidence of her own fear playing out in real time. Her scales slowly shifted from dark red back to gold. Can you fix it? She asked finally. Can you make the heart stable again? Yes, Jiho said. But you have to help me. You have to learn to manage your emotions better. This heart will last for centuries if you take care of it. But if you keep living the way you have been, it will fail again within a year. I am a queen, I cannot show weakness. I am not asking you to show weakness. I'm asking you to take care of yourself. There is a difference. Durham was quiet again. Then slowly she nodded. Fix it, human. And then we will see. Jiho worked through another sleepless night. He stabilized the power core, rerouted the damaged energy pathways, and recalibrated the emotional response system. By the morning of the third day, the heart was working properly again. Dareem sat up slowly. Her scales were bright gold and her breathing was steady. She looked down at Jiho, who was slumped in his chair, barely conscious from exhaustion. You did it, she said, almost surprised. I did it, Jiho agreed. He tried to stand, stumbled, and caught himself on the edge of the console. You need rest. I need to get back to work. I have other repairs to do. No. Darum's voice was firm. You will stay here. As my personal heart technician, I will pay you 10 times what the station is paying you. Your family's debts will be cleared within a year. Jiho looked at her in shock. Your Majesty, I cannot. You can and you will. I do not trust anyone else with this knowledge. You will stay by my side and monitor my heart. That is not a request. That is an order. Jiho wanted to argue, but he was too tired. And if he was honest with himself, the offer was too good to refuse. 10 times his current pay? His family would be free in a year instead of 5. All right, he said. I will stay. Good. Darum stood, her full height towering over him. Welcome to my service, Jiho of Earth. Try not to die. I have grown used to your company. As she walked out of the medical chamber, Jiho collapsed into his chair and finally let exhaustion claim him. The Varathian homeworld of Korath Vel was nothing like Earth. Jiho stood on the landing platform of the royal palace and stared at a sky that burned with 3 different colors. The planet orbited close to a red giant star, and the atmosphere filtered the light into shades of crimson, orange, and deep purple. Mountains of black volcanic rock rose in the distance, and rivers of lava cut through the valleys between them. Beautiful, isn't it? Darum said, standing beside him. Terrifying, Jiho corrected. But yes, also beautiful. They had arrived 2 weeks after leaving Valaris Prime. In that time, Jiho had monitored Darum's heart constantly, making small adjustments as needed. The journey had been peaceful, but now they faced something more difficult. The Varathian court. The nobility was waiting for them in the throne room. Hundreds of Varathians in elaborate clothing made from metals and crystals. Their scales displayed every color imaginable, marking their different houses and territories. They all watched Jiho with barely concealed disgust. Raon introduced him formally. This is Jiho of Earth, the Queen's personal heart technician. He will be staying in the palace under Her Majesty's protection. A murmur ran through the crowd. Then a voice called out loud and challenging. A human? You bring a primitive human into our palace while you reject the finest suitors in the galaxy. The speaker was a tall Varathian with scales of deep blue and silver. He wore military decorations across his chest, marking him as a warrior of high rank. High Commander Tarek, Darum said coldly. I did not realize you were invited to this gathering. I am always invited, Your Majesty, as your chief military commander and as someone who has asked for your hand in marriage 3 times. And been rejected 3 times, Darum replied. Perhaps you should take the hint. Tarek's scales darkened with anger. I am one of the strongest warriors in the Empire. I have conquered 15 systems in your name. And yet you choose to spend your time with this fragile little creature? This fragile little creature saved my life, Darum said. Which is more than you have ever done. Another voice spoke up, smooth and diplomatic. Your Majesty, perhaps we can approach this more reasonably. A handsome Varathian stepped forward. His scales were emerald green with patterns of gold, and he moved with the grace of a dancer. This was Prince Minho of the Jade Nebula, known throughout the galaxy as a master negotiator and one of the wealthiest beings in existence. Jiho of Earth, Minho said, smiling at him like a predator studying prey. I mean no disrespect. I am sure you are skilled at your work. But you must understand our concern. The Queen has refused marriage alliances that could strengthen our empire, and now she brings an outsider into her inner circle. Some might see this as poor judgment. Some might see it as none of their business, Jiho replied before he could stop himself. The room went silent. Several nobles gasped. Even Raon looked horrified. Minho's smile did not change, but his eyes went cold. How interesting. The human has a spine after all. Enough, Darium said, her voice cutting through the tension. I will not debate my choices with any of you. Jiho is here because I require his services. That is the end of the discussion. Perhaps, said a third voice, soft and dangerous, we should let the human prove himself worthy of his position. Lady Hana glided forward from the back of the room. She was beautiful in a terrifying way. With scales of pure white and eyes like polished obsidian, she ruled a neighboring system and had been competing with Darum for territory for decades. What are you suggesting? Darum asked, her tone wary. A test, Hana said simply. 3 trials, as is traditional for anyone seeking a position of importance in the Varathian court. If this human passes, then we will accept him. If he fails, she smiled. Well, then perhaps you will reconsider your choices, Your Majesty. Darum's scales flickered with anger, and Jiho felt his portable monitor vibrate. Her heart was surging. He touched her arm gently, a reminder to stay calm. I accept, Jiho said. Everyone turned to stare at him. Darum looked down at him in surprise. Jiho, you do not have to. I accept, he repeated, looking at Hana. 3 trials. When do we start? Hana's smile widened. Tomorrow. Rest well, human. You will need it. That night, Jiho could not sleep. He stood on the balcony of his assigned quarters, looking out at the alien landscape. The lava rivers glowed in the darkness, and the sky was filled with stars he did not recognize. Darum found him there. You should not have accepted, she said, stepping onto the balcony beside him. These trials will be dangerous. I had to. If I refused, they would see it as weakness. They already think I do not belong here. You don't belong here, Darum said, but her voice was gentle. This is not your world, Jiho. These are not your people. You could have stayed on Valaris Prime, found safer work, and gone home to Earth eventually. Why did you agree to come with me? Jiho thought about the question. He had been asking himself the same thing. Because you needed help, he said finally, and because I wanted to see where this would go. You are interesting, Your Majesty. Darum laughed, a real laugh this time. Interesting. What a human thing to say. She looked down at him, her golden eyes reflecting the lava light. I have lived for 347 years, Jiho. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars die. And in all that time, no one has called me interesting. Terrifying, yes. Powerful, certainly. But never interesting. Maybe that is the problem, Jiho said. Everyone is so busy being afraid of you that they forget you are a person. I am a queen. You are both. They stood in silence for a while, watching the lava rivers flow. What will the trials be? Jiho asked. I do not know exactly. But knowing Hana, they will test 3 things. Your skill, your intelligence, and your character. The first 2 you can prepare for. The third... Darum hesitated. The third is about who you are. No one can teach you that. The first trial came at dawn. They gathered in a massive workshop beneath the palace, where broken machines and salvaged technology filled every corner. High Commander Tarek stood at the center, his arms crossed. The trial of fire, he announced. You will repair the planetary defense system's main power relay. It has been damaged in our last battle, and our own engineers have failed to fix it. You will have 4 hours. If you fail, the system stays broken and your trial ends in failure. He gestured to a massive machine in the corner. It was the size of a small building, covered in scorch marks and broken components. Jiho walked around it slowly, studying the damage. His heart sank. This was not just broken. It was destroyed. Fixing it would require parts he did not have, and knowledge of Varathian technology he did not possess. But then he looked closer and saw something familiar. The core design was similar to human fusion reactors, just built on a much larger scale, and scattered around the workshop were parts from different machines, pieces that might work if he could adapt them. He got to work. For 4 hours he barely breathed. He pulled components from a dozen different machines, modified them with tools that felt wrong in his hands, and slowly pieced together a solution. It was not elegant. It was not pretty. But with 10 minutes left on the clock, he powered up the relay. It hummed to life, lights flickering across its surface. The crowd murmured in surprise. Acceptable, Tarek said, though he looked disappointed. You passed the first trial. The second trial was held in the royal library. Prince Minho stood waiting, holding an ancient tablet covered in symbols Jiho could not read. The trial of wisdom, Minho said. Before you is the riddle of the first queen, unsolved for 800 years. You will solve it or you will fail. He showed Jiho the tablet. The symbols meant nothing to him, but Rayon quietly provided a translation. I am the beginning of everything, the end of everywhere. I am the beginning of eternity, the end of time and space. What am I? Jiho stared at the riddle. He had heard something like this before back on Earth. It was a word puzzle, not a philosophical question. The answer was in the language itself. He thought in Korean, then in English, then tried to think in Varathian. And suddenly he saw it. The answer was the same in every language, hidden in the structure of the words themselves. The letter E, he said, or whatever symbol represents that sound in your language. It is the beginning of the word everything and eternity. It is the end of everywhere, time and space. Minho stared at him. Then slowly he smiled. Correct. You passed the second trial. The third trial came the next day, and it was the one Jiho feared most. They took him to a building at the edge of the city, an old structure that looked ready to collapse. Inside, he could hear voices crying for help. Lady Hana stood at the entrance. The trial of hearts, she said. There are children trapped inside this building. It is unstable and will collapse in 10 minutes. You can save yourself easily. The exit is clear, or you can try to save them and risk dying. The choice is yours. Jiho did not hesitate. He ran inside. The building was dark and filled with smoke. He found the children huddled in a back room, 5 young Varathians with frightened eyes. The ceiling above them was cracking, dropping pieces of stone. Come on, he said, reaching for them. We have to go now. They followed him, but the building shook and the main corridor collapsed, blocking their path. Jiho looked around frantically and saw a side passage, narrow and dangerous. He pushed the children through it, one by one. The last child made it through just as the ceiling above Jiho gave way. He tried to jump clear, but a beam caught his leg, pinning him down. Pain exploded through his body. He heard the children screaming his name, heard the building groaning as it prepared to collapse completely. Then he heard something else, a roar of fury that shook the walls. Dharam crashed through the debris like a storm of golden fire. Her wings were fully extended and her eyes blazed with light. She grabbed the beam with her bare hands and lifted it, muscles straining. Jiho scrambled free and she caught him, pulling him against her chest. She flew them out of the building just as it collapsed behind them. They landed in the street outside. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Dharam held Jiho carefully, her scales flickering with emotion. Her heart monitor was screaming warnings, but she did not seem to notice. You fool, she whispered. You beautiful, brave fool. Lady Hana stepped forward. For once, she was not smiling. He passes the third trial. All 3 trials, in fact. She looked at Dharam. Your Majesty, it seems the human has more honor than many of us expected. Dharam did not respond. She was too busy making sure Jiho was still breathing. The royal gardens were the only place on Korathvel that felt peaceful. Hidden behind the palace walls, protected by energy shields, the gardens held plants from 100 different worlds. Some glowed in the darkness. Others sang soft melodies when the wind touched them. Water flowed through carefully carved channels, a luxury on a desert planet. Jiho sat on a bench, his injured legs stretched out in front of him. The Varathian doctors had healed the broken bones quickly, but he still felt sore. More than that, he felt exhausted. The trials had taken everything out of him. Dharam found him there at sunset when the sky turned from purple to deep red. May I sit? She asked. It is your garden, Your Majesty. That is not what I asked. Then yes. Please. She sat beside him, folding her wings carefully so they would not knock him off the bench. They were quiet for a while, listening to the singing plants and the sound of water. You did not have to save me, Jiho said finally. During the trial? Yes, I did. The trial was supposed to test me, not you. You broke the rules by interfering. I do not care. Dharam's voice was firm. I am the queen, I make the rules. And I was not going to watch you die for the sake of someone else's test. Jiho looked at her. In the fading light, her scales seemed to glow from within. Your heart monitor went crazy when you pulled me out. You could have hurt yourself. I know. You need to be more careful. If your heart fails again... I know, Dharam repeated more softly this time. But I could not stop myself. When I saw that building collapse with you inside, I felt something I have not felt in 50 years. Terror. Real, Absolute terror. And I realized something. She turned to face him fully. I care about you, Jiho, more than I should. More than is wise for a queen to care about anyone. Jiho's breath caught. Your Majesty, call me Dharam, please. When we are alone like this, just call me Dharam. Dharam, he said, testing the name. It felt strange on his tongue, too familiar and too precious at the same time. I don't understand. I am just a mechanic. I am nobody. You are not nobody. You are the first person in 50 years who has treated me like a person instead of a symbol. You argue with me. You tell me when I am wrong. You care about my well-being more than my status. She laughed quietly. Do you know how rare that is? How strange it feels to have someone worry about me instead of fearing me. Everyone should have that, Jiho said. Even queens. Especially queens. They fell silent again. Jiho knew he should say something more, but he did not know what. His feelings were confused, tangled up with fear and hope and disbelief. He was falling in love with a queen, with an alien who would live for centuries after he was dust. It was impossible. It was foolish. It was happening anyway. Over the next weeks, they spent more time together. Officially, Jiho was monitoring her heart, making sure the repairs held. But really, they were just talking. Dharam showed him the palace, told him stories about Varathian history, taught him words in her language. Jiho told her about Earth, about his family, about the small life he had left behind. One night they were walking through the gardens when Dharam suddenly stopped. Her hand went to her chest and her scales flickered. Are you all right? Jiho asked immediately, pulling out his portable monitor. I am fine. It is just... She looked at the readings and frowned. My heart is surging again. Jiho checked the data. His frown deepened. This doesn't make sense. The power core is stable. The energy flow is perfect. Everything should be working correctly. Then why is it surging? Jiho looked at the readings more carefully. He noticed something strange. The surges were not random. They happened at specific times. When Dharam looked at him. When they stood close together. When they talked about things that made her happy or sad. Understanding hit him like a physical blow. Oh, he said quietly. What? What is wrong? Nothing is wrong. That is the problem. He looked up at her, his expression helpless. Your heart is working perfectly. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is responding to your emotions, I know that. You told me to manage my emotions better, and I have been trying. You are managing your anger and fear better, yes. But there is another emotion you are not managing, one you have not felt in a very long time. He took a deep breath. The heart is responding to love, Dharam. You are feeling love, and the device does not know how to handle it. Dharam stared at him. Her scales shifted through a dozen colors in rapid succession. That is ridiculous. Is it? Jiho showed her the data. Look at the patterns. Every time you feel happy around me, the heart surges. Every time you worry about me, it surges. Your heart is calibrated for anger and fear and duty. It was never calibrated for love because you have never let yourself feel it before. I loved someone once, Dharam said, her voice defensive. 50 years ago. The one who tried to kill me. Did you really love him? Or did you love the idea of him? The idea of not being alone? Dharam opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. She looked away toward the glowing plants. I do not know, she admitted. Maybe you are right. Maybe I never really loved him. I wanted to love him, but I never felt safe enough to actually do it. And now I feel terrified. She looked back at him and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Because I think I am falling in love with you, Jiho. And that is the most dangerous thing I have ever done. You are human. You will live maybe 100 years if you are lucky. I will live for centuries more. How can I let myself love you when I know I will lose you? I don't know, Jiho said honestly. I am terrified too. You are a queen. You are powerful and ancient and beautiful. I am nobody. I fix machines. After you no longer need me, I will go back to Earth and you will forget I existed. I could never forget you. You say that now. I will never forget you, Dharam repeated, fierce and certain. If you died tomorrow, I would remember you for the rest of my life. That is what love means, Jiho. It means you change someone forever. You have changed me. You have reminded me that I am not just a queen. I am a person. I am allowed to feel things, to want things, to be vulnerable sometimes. You gave that back to me. Jiho felt his throat tighten with emotion. What do we do now? I do not know. But I know I cannot keep pretending I do not feel this. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away if he wanted. Her hand, massive and clawed, touched his face with impossible gentleness. I am falling in love with you. That is the truth. What you do with that truth is your choice. Jiho leaned into her touch. I am falling in love with you too, even though it is crazy, even though it is impossible. Everything worth doing is impossible at first, Darim said softly. That is what makes it worth doing. They stayed like that for a long time, not quite embracing but closer than they had ever been. The singing plants hummed around them, and the stars wheeled overhead. Then Jiho's monitor started screaming. He looked down at it and his blood went cold. Darim, your heart? Something is wrong. I feel fine. No, look at the readings. The surge is not stopping. It is building. The power core is... The pain hit her suddenly. Darim gasped and fell to her knees, her hand clutching her chest. Her scales went black and her wings spread involuntarily. No, 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 Jiho said, dropping down beside her.
Stay with me, breathe, just breathe. But the readings kept getting worse.
The power core was overloading, and this time it was not from anger or fear. It was from love, from an emotion so strong that the device could not handle it. We need to get you to the medical bay, Jiho said. Now. He tried to help her stand, but she was too heavy. He called for help through his communicator, but they were too far from the palace. No one would reach them in time. Darim looked at him, and even through her pain, she smiled. I told you love was dangerous. Don't joke. Please don't joke right now. I am not joking. I'm just... She coughed, and her scales flickered. I am glad. Even if this kills me, I am glad I felt this. I would rather die feeling love than live forever feeling nothing. You are not going to die, Jiho said fiercely. I will not let you die. He looked at his portable tools, his mind racing. He could not fix the heart here in the gardens with no equipment. But maybe he could stabilize it. Maybe he could do something, anything, to keep her alive until help arrived. He pulled out a neural connector, the same kind he used to interface with machines. His hands shook as he attached it to his own temple, then to the side of Darim's head. What are you doing? She asked weakly. Something stupid, Jiho admitted. Your heart responds to emotions. Mine does not have a mechanical component. If I can link our neural systems temporarily, maybe I can help stabilize your emotional state, keep you calm until the doctors arrive. That is extremely dangerous. If something goes wrong, then we both die. But if I do nothing, you die anyway. So I would rather try. He activated the connection. The world exploded into sensation. He felt everything Darim felt. The pain in her chest, the fear of dying, the overwhelming love she felt for him. It was too much, too intense. Human minds were not meant to feel emotions this strongly. But he held on. He pushed back against the fear, sending calm thoughts through the connection. He reminded her to breathe, to focus, to stay present. He showed her images of Earth, of peaceful things, of the ocean he had described to her. Slowly, gradually, her heart began to stabilize. By the time the medical team arrived, Darim was unconscious but breathing steadily. Jiho collapsed beside her, the neural connector falling from his temple. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Rayon's frightened face above him, shouting orders he could not understand. Jiho woke up 3 days later in a medical bed that was not designed for humans. His head felt like it had been split open and put back together wrong. Every sound was too loud, every light too bright. The neural connection had damaged something in his brain, something the doctors were still trying to fix. Rayon sat beside his bed, looking older than usual. The Queen? Jiho asked, his voice rough. Alive, recovering. She woke up yesterday and has been asking for you constantly. Rayon studied him with tired eyes. What you did was incredibly foolish. You could have died. You could have destroyed both your minds, but I didn't. No, you did not. Instead, you saved her life a second time. Rayon leaned forward. The doctors say your neural patterns are now partially synchronized with hers. It will fade over time, but for now you will sometimes feel echoes of her emotions, and she will feel yours. Jiho closed his eyes. He could feel it, a faint presence in the back of his mind. Darim. She was worried about him. She was relieved he was awake. She was feeling something else too, something warm and fierce and terrifying. I need to see her, he said. Tomorrow, when you are stronger. For now, rest. But Jiho did not see Darim the next day or the day after. She sent messages saying she was busy with court matters, that she would visit when she could. The messages were formal, distant. The warmth he had felt through their connection began to fade. Jiho understood what was happening. She was pulling away, protecting herself. Love had nearly killed her, and now she was building walls again, retreating back into the safety of being just a queen. He wanted to respect that choice. He wanted to give her space. But every day that passed felt wrong, like watching something precious slip away. On the 7th day, Lady Hana came to visit him. "You look terrible," she said pleasantly, sitting in the chair beside his bed. "Thank you. That helps." "I came to tell you something important." Her expression turned serious. "The court is talking. About you and the queen. About what happened in the gardens. Some of them are angry. They think you are manipulating her, using your position to gain power. I'm not. I know. But they do not care about truth. They care about politics. And right now you are a political problem." She leaned back. "There are some who want you sent back to Earth immediately. Others want worse. They see you as a threat to the order of things." "What do you want?" Jiho asked. "Me? I want to see what happens next. This is the most interesting thing that has happened in this empire for decades." She smiled. "But I will tell you this, human. If you love her, truly love her, then you need to make a choice. Either fight for her or leave. Because staying here in this middle ground where she is afraid to see you and you are afraid to push, that helps no one." After she left, Jiho lay in bed thinking, Lady Hana was right. He could not stay in this uncertain place. He needed to either commit fully or walk away. The decision was easier than he expected. He found Darim on the royal balcony at sunset, staring out at the lava rivers. She did not turn when he approached, though he knew she sensed him through their fading connection. "You should be resting," she said. "I rested enough. We need to talk. There is nothing to talk about. Darim, please. Look at me." She turned slowly. Her scales were a muted gold, carefully controlled. Her eyes showed nothing. "What do you want me to say, Jiho? That I love you? I already said that. That I am sorry I almost killed us both? I am sorry. But nothing has changed. This is still impossible. Why? Why?" She laughed bitterly. "Because I am a queen with responsibilities to billions of people. Because you are human and will die in a handful of years compared to my lifespan. Because my court will never accept this. Because my enemies will use it against me. Because loving you nearly destroyed my heart. Take your pick." "Those are all reasons it is hard," Jiho said calmly. "Not reasons it is impossible. There is a difference. Is there?" "Yes." He moved closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his presence. "I have been thinking. About what I want. About what you want. About what is possible if we stop being afraid. I am not afraid. You are terrified. I can feel it through our connection. You are more scared now than when your heart was failing." He took a deep breath. "I am scared too. But I am tired of letting fear make my decisions for me, so I am going to tell you what I want and you can decide what to do with it." Darim said nothing, but she was listening. "I want to stay," Jiho said, "not as your heart technician, not as someone who is just passing through your life. I want to be your partner, your equal as much as a human can be equal to a queen. I want to help you rule. I want to stand beside you when things are hard. I want to be the person you talk to when you are tired of being strong. That is not a position that exists in Varathian society. Then create it. You are the queen. You can change the rules." "It is not that simple." "Yes, it is," Jiho interrupted gently. "You are making it complicated because that is safer than admitting what you want. So let me make it simple. Do you love me?" Darim's scales flickered, her control slipping. "Yes." "Do you want me to stay?" "Yes, then ask me to stay. Not as an employee. Not as a temporary solution. Ask me to stay as someone you love. As someone you want in your life permanently. And what about all the problems? My court, your lifespan, my heart, we will figure them out. Together. That is what people who love each other do. They face the problems together instead of running away from them." Darim closed her eyes. Through their connection, Jiho felt the war happening inside her. Fear against hope. Duty against desire. The weight of centuries of loneliness against the possibility of genuine connection. When she opened her eyes again, they were bright with tears. "Stay," she whispered. "Please stay. Not as my employee. As someone I love. As my partner. Yes, Jiho said simply. I will stay. She reached for him then, and he stepped into her embrace. She was careful with her strength, mindful of how fragile he was compared to her, but her arms around him felt like the safest place in the galaxy. We will face so much opposition, she said against his hair. I know. My court will fight this. Some of them will try to remove you. Or worse. I know. And one day you will grow old and die, and I will still be here, still young. I will have to watch you fade. I know, Jiho said quietly. But that is decades away. We have time, and maybe with time we can find solutions. Better medical technology, life extension treatments, or maybe we will not. And we will just make the most of the time we have. Either way, isn't it better than never trying? Darum pulled back enough to look at him. When did you become so wise? I'm not wise. I just know that I would rather have 30 years of happiness with you than 300 years of safety without you. 30 years is nothing. 30 years is everything. If we make it count, she smiled then, a real smile that made her scales shimmer. Very well. We will make it count. 3 months later, Darum stood before the Galactic Court at Valaris Prime, the same court where she had rejected suitors for decades. This time she was making a different kind of announcement. For centuries, she said, her voice carrying across the great hall, political marriages have been the foundation of alliances in this galaxy. We bind ourselves to people we do not know, do not trust, sometimes do not even like, for the sake of power and security. The gathered rulers listened silently, uncertain where she was going with this. I reject that tradition, Darum continued. Not just for myself, but as a principle. From this day forward, the Vorathian Empire will form alliances based on genuine partnership and mutual respect. Not forced marriages. We will choose our companions freely, as we choose our friends and our advisors, through authentic connection, not political transaction. A murmur ran through the crowd, some shocked, some intrigued. I make this declaration, Darum said, because I have found such a partnership. Not with a warrior or a prince or another queen, with a human mechanic who saw past my title to the person underneath, who taught me that vulnerability is not weakness, that love is not a political tool, and that the strongest alliances are built on trust rather than obligation. She gestured, and Jiho stepped forward from the side of the hall. He looked small beside her, dressed in formal clothing that still looked strange on him, but he walked with his head high, meeting the stares of galactic rulers without flinching. This is Jiho of Earth, Darum said. My partner, my choice, and anyone who wishes to form an alliance with the Vorathian Empire will respect that choice, or they can look elsewhere for allies. The silence that followed was absolute. Then slowly someone began to clap. Prince Minho of the Jade Nebula stood and applauded, a smile on his face. Lady Hannah joined him, looking amused. Others followed, some enthusiastically, some reluctantly. Not everyone approved. High Commander Tarek left the hall in anger. Several rulers whispered to their advisors, calculating how this change would affect their own political positions. But enough of them stayed. Enough of them listened that Darum knew the message had been received. The galaxy was changing. Slowly perhaps, but changing nonetheless. Later, back on Karath Vel, Jiho stood in his workshop. It was a small space attached to the palace, filled with tools and half-finished projects. He had students now, young Vorathians who wanted to learn human engineering techniques. The old ways and the new ways merged together. Darum found him there, covered in grease and smiling as he taught a young Vorathian how to calibrate a power core. You are happy, she observed. I am, Jiho agreed. He finished the lesson, sent his student away with homework, and turned to face her fully. Are you? I am, Darum said, and she meant it. Her heart, both the mechanical one and the emotional one, beat steadily and strong. She had learned to manage her emotions better, to allow herself to feel without fear. The device had been modified one final time with Jiho's help to accommodate the full range of her feelings. Love no longer threatened to destroy it. Instead, it made the device stronger, more stable. I have been thinking, Jiho said, about the future, about life extension treatments. I talked to some doctors and there are options. Experimental ones, but options. I could potentially live longer. Not as long as you, but maybe 200 years instead of 100. Would you want that? Darum asked carefully. To change yourself so drastically? I would want more time with you. If that means some medical procedures, then yes. But only if you want it to. I do not want you to feel obligated. She kissed him, cutting off his words. It was still new between them, still strange and wonderful. She was always careful, always gentle. But the warmth was real and the love was real, and that was enough. I want it too, she said when they parted. Every year I can have with you I want. We will explore the options together. They stood together in the workshop, surrounded by machines and tools, as the sun set over Korath Vel. Outside, the Empire continued its work. Political alliances were being renegotiated. New traditions were taking root. Change rippled outward, slow but inevitable. And at the center of it all, a queen and a mechanic held each other. Two people from different worlds who had somehow found a way to build a bridge between them. Thank you, Darim said quietly, for fixing my heart. Both times. You fixed mine too, Jiho replied. I was lost before I met you, drifting. Now I know exactly where I belong. And where is that? Here with you. For as long as we have. Darim smiled, her scales shimmering gold in the fading light. Then that is where you will stay, for as long as we have, and perhaps even longer. They stayed like that as the stars came out one by one, lighting up the alien sky, two hearts beating together, one mechanical, one organic, both alive with love that had seemed impossible until they chose to make it real. In the end, that was the most human thing of all. Taking something impossible and making it work through sheer stubborn determination and hope. That was what humans brought to the galaxy. Not superior technology or physical strength, but the audacity to believe that love could overcome any obstacle. And sometimes, just sometimes, they were right.